First contact. The sleek, silver spacecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. Inside, Dr. Zora Extelor, lead xenobiologist from the Galactic Science Academy, adjusted her environmental suit with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Approaching designated landing zone, the ship's AI announced, "Prepare for touchdown." Zara took a deep breath, her iridescent skin shimmering with anticipation. After years of studying Earth from afar, she would finally set foot on this fascinating, if primitive, world. Her mission, to study human reproduction up close, a subject that had baffled and amused her colleagues for decades. As the ship touched down in a secluded forest clearing, Zara activated her personal cloaking device. She stepped out onto the soft, damp earth, her senses immediately flooding with data. The rich sense of vegetation, the cacophony of insect and bird calls, the feel of the planet's gravity, it was overwhelming. "Focus," she muttered to herself. "You're here to study, not sightsee." Zara made her way towards the nearby human settlement, her steps silent and invisible. The town of Millbrook was small by human standards, but perfect for her research. Here, she could observe human mating rituals and reproductive practices without the complications of a large city. As she entered the town, Zara was struck by the variety of human forms. Tall, short, different skin tones and body types, all so inefficient compared to her own species' uniform perfection. And yet, there was something captivating about their diversity. Her first stop was the local medical center. Slipping past the reception area, Zara found herself in a maternity ward. She watched, fascinated, as a human female struggled through labor, her face contorted in pain. How barbaric, Zara thought, recording the process. To endure such agony for reproduction, our artificial gestation chambers are far superior. Over the next few days, Zara observed countless human interactions. She watched teenagers awkwardly flirt in the local park, saw couples holding hands as they walked down the street, and even witnessed a wedding ceremony. So much ritual, she mused. So much emotion. How do they manage to reproduce at all with all these complications? 1 week into her mission, Zara decided it was time to interact more directly with the subjects of her study. Using her advanced technology, she created a human disguise for herself, an average-looking woman in her early 30s. With her cloaking device deactivated, she walked into Millbrook's busiest coffee shop. The bell above the door chimed as she entered, and several heads turned to look at her. Zara felt a moment of panic. Had they seen through her disguise? But no, they simply smiled politely and returned to their conversations. "Welcome to Joe's Java," a cheerful voice called out. "What can I get for you today?" Zara approached the counter, where a young man with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile waited. His name tag read Chris. I'm new in town," Zara stammered, unused to direct interaction. "What do you recommend?" Chris's smile widened. "Well, if you're feeling adventurous, our Millbrook mocha is pretty popular. It's got a hint of cinnamon and a dash of local honey." Zara nodded, not entirely sure what she was agreeing to. "That sounds adequate. I mean, good. I'll try that." As Chris prepared her drink, Zara took in the atmosphere of the coffee shop. Humans sat in small groups or alone, some talking animatedly, others focused on strange devices they held in their hands. The air was filled with the rich aroma of coffee and the sound of laughter. "Here you go," Chris said, placing a steaming mug in front of her. "Enjoy, and welcome to Millbrook. If you need any tips on local hotspots, just let me know." Zara took the mug, surprised by its warmth. "Thank you," she said, then added, remembering her research on human customs, "That's very kind of you." She found an empty table and sat down, bringing the mug to her lips. The taste exploded on her tongue. Bitter, sweet, spicy, and something else she couldn't identify. It was pleasant. As she sipped her drink, Zara observed the humans around her more closely. A young couple at a nearby table caught her attention. They weren't speaking, yet there seemed to be a whole conversation happening in the way they looked at each other, in the subtle touches of their hands. Zara's scientific mind raced. How could she quantify this? How could she explain the complex interplay of hormones, pheromones, and emotional responses that seemed to be occurring? And more importantly, how did all of this relate to the act of reproduction? Lost in her thoughts, Zara didn't notice Chris approaching her table until he spoke. "How's the moksha?" he asked, startling her. "It's intriguing," Zara replied honestly. "I've never tasted anything quite like it." Chris laughed, a sound that Zara found oddly pleasing. "Well, that's a new one. Usually, people just say it's good or bad. Intriguing, huh? I like that." Zara felt a strange warmth in her cheeks. Was this what humans called blushing? How curious. "I'm Chris, by the way," he said, extending his hand. Zara stared at it for a moment before remembering the human custom of shaking hands. She reached out, marveling at the sensation of his skin against hers. "I'm Sarah," she said, using the human name she had chosen for her cover. "Nice to meet you, Sarah," Chris said. "So, what brings you to our little town?" Zara hesitated. She couldn't reveal her true purpose, of course. "I'm studying," she said finally. "Human behavior." Chris raised an eyebrow. "Human behavior? Like a psychologist or something?" "Something like that," Zara agreed, relieved to have a plausible explanation. "I'm particularly interested in mating rituals. I mean, relationships." To her surprise, Chris didn't seem put off by her odd phrasing. Instead, he laughed again. "Well, you've come to the right place. Small town like this, everyone knows everyone else's business, especially when it comes to who's dating who." Zara leaned forward, eager for more information. "Really? Can you tell me more about the typical mating? I mean, dating practices here?" Chris gave her an amused look. "You're not from around here, are you? Your way of talking is pretty unique." Zara felt a moment of panic. Had she already blown her cover? "I'm from very far away," she said cautiously. Chris nodded. "I figured. Well, tell you what. My shift ends in an hour. If you're interested, I could show you around town, give you a local's perspective on Millbrook's thriving romantic scene." He said the last part with a touch of sarcasm and a wink. Zara blinked, processing the offer. This could be an excellent opportunity for her research, and yet she felt a strange flutter in her stomach at the thought of spending more time with Chris. How odd. "That would be most helpful," she said finally. "Thank you." As Chris walked away to serve other customers, Zara sat back in her chair, her mind whirling. She had come to study human reproduction, expecting to find it primitive and inefficient. Instead, she was discovering a complex web of interactions, emotions, and behaviors that both confused and intrigued her. And as she watched Chris move behind the counter, his easy smile and warm eyes drawing her gaze, Zara had a sudden startling thought. What if there was more to human reproduction than she had initially believed? What if, in her quest for scientific understanding, she was about to discover something about herself as well? The first week of her mission had certainly not gone as expected, and as Zara contemplated the strange warmth she felt when Chris smiled at her, she had a feeling that the surprises were only just beginning. The alien among youths. Dr. Zara Exler, disguised as the human Sarah, found herself walking alongside Chris through the quaint streets of Millbrook. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a sight that made Zara's artificial heart skip a beat. "So, Sarah," Chris began, his hands casually tucked into his pockets, "you mentioned you're studying human behavior. Any particular reason you chose our little slice of nowhere?" Zara hesitated, formulating her response carefully. "I believe small communities often reveal the most about a species. I mean, about people. The interactions here seem more authentic." Chris chuckled, a sound that Zara was beginning to find oddly pleasant. "Authentic is one word for it. I go with nosy personally. But hey, if you're looking for real human drama, You've hit the jackpot. As they walked, Zara's enhanced senses picked up snippets of conversation from passing locals. Gossip about who was dating whom, whispers of secret crushes, and animated discussions about the upcoming town festival filled the air. "Tell me," Zara said, her scientific curiosity piqued. "What is the purpose of this festival?" Chris raised an eyebrow. "The Millbrook Midsummer Matchmaking Festival. It's only the biggest event of the year. Part carnival, part dating game show. The whole town goes crazy for it." Zara's eyes widened. A communal mating ritual. Fascinating. She quickly corrected herself, noting Chris' amused expression. "I mean, how interesting. And people voluntarily participate in this matchmaking." "Oh yeah," Chris nodded, leading her towards the town square where preparations for the festival were underway. "Some folks take it super seriously, others just for fun, but it's a tradition going back generations." As they approached the square, Zara marveled at the colorful decorations being put up. Strings of lights crisscrossed overhead, and booths were being erected around the perimeter. In the center, a large stage was under construction. "What happens there?" Zara pointed to the stage. Chris grinned mischievously. "That's where the real fun happens. We have games, challenges, even a compatibility quiz for couples. It's all in good fun, but you'd be surprised how many long-term relationships have started right there on that stage." Zara's mind raced, trying to reconcile this information with her pre-existing notions of human mating practices. But how can such public displays lead to successful reproductive partnerships? Chris gave her an odd look. "Reproductive partnerships? Gee, Sarah, you really aren't from around here, are you? It's not about reproduction, at least not primarily. It's about connection, about finding someone you click with." "Click?" Zara echoed, confused. "Yeah, Chris struggled to explain. Someone you enjoy being around. Someone who makes you laugh, who understands you. Someone who makes your heart race a little when they smile at you." Zara felt a sudden warmth in her cheeks as Chris's eyes met hers. She quickly looked away, flustered by her body's unexpected reaction. "I see," she murmured, though in truth, she felt more confused than ever. As they continued their tour, Zara's attention was drawn to a group of teenagers huddled near the ice cream parlor. They were engaged in what appeared to be an intense discussion, complete with dramatic gestures and hushed exclamations. "What's happening there?" Zara asked, nodding towards the group. Chris followed her gaze and chuckled. "Ah, young love and drama. Looks like Timmy finally worked up the courage to ask Lily to be his date for the festival. And based on all that whispering, I'd say she said yes." Zara watched, fascinated, as one of the boys broke away from the group, his face flushed and a wide grin plastered across it. The remaining teenagers erupted into a flurry of excited chatter and congratulatory pats on the back. "But why all the fuss?" Zara asked. "Isn't the purpose of your mating rituals simply to find a compatible genetic match?" Chris burst out laughing, drawing curious glances from passers-by. "Oh, ma'am Sarah, you're killing me. Genetic match? Who talks like that?" He wiped a tear from his eye, still chuckling. "Look, dating isn't about genetics or whatever. It's about emotions, about finding someone who makes you happy." Zara frowned, struggling to comprehend. In her world, reproduction was a clinical process, devoid of all this messiness. And yet, as she observed the joy on the teenagers' faces, the warmth in Chris's eyes as he explained human customs to her, she felt a strange longing she couldn't quite name. Their walk brought them to a small park where couples strolled hand in hand along winding paths. Zara watched, mesmerized, as a young man knelt before his partner, presenting a small box. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she nodded enthusiastically, then threw her arms around the man. "What's happening there?" Zara asked, her voice hushed. Chris smiled softly. "Looks like we just witnessed a proposal. He's asking her to marry him, to spend their lives together." "But how can they know?" Zara blurted out. "How can they be certain their partnership will be successful long-term?" Chris turned to her, his expression serious now. They can't know for sure, Sarah. That's the thing about love and relationships. It's a leap of faith. You're choosing to build a life with someone, to face all of life's challenges together. It's scary, and yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out. But when it does, he trailed off, his gaze distant. When it does, it's the most amazing thing in the world. Zara felt something shift inside her, a fundamental change in her understanding of human relationships. She had come to study reproduction, expecting to find a simple biological process. Instead, she was discovering a complex tapestry of emotions, choices, and connections that seemed to defy scientific explanation. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars appeared in the sky, Chris turned to Zara with a smile. "So, what do you think of Millbrooks so far?" Zara looked at him, then at the town around them, alive with laughter, love, and the promise of connection. "I think," she said slowly, "that I have a lot more to learn." Chris's smile widened. "Well, the festival starts tomorrow. Want to go together? For your research?" Zara felt that strange flutter in her stomach again. "Yes," she found herself saying, "I'd like that very much." As they parted ways for the night, Zara's mind was awhirl with new questions and unfamiliar emotions. She had come to Earth to study human reproduction, but she was beginning to suspect that she had stumbled upon something far more complex and beautiful than she had ever imagined. And as she glanced back at Chris' retreating figure, Zara wondered if perhaps she was about to embark on a journey of discovery that went far beyond her original mission parameters. Cosmic connections. The Millbrook Midsummer Matchmaking Festival erupted into life, a kaleidoscope of colors, sounds, and scents that overwhelmed Zara's alien senses. Disguised as Sarah, she stood at the entrance, her eyes wide with wonder. "Pretty amazing, huh?" Chris appeared beside her, grinning. "Ready to dive into the wildest human mating ritual this side of the galaxy?" Zara nodded, trying to ignore the strange flutter in her chest at Chris' proximity. "Lead the way, Earthling," she said, immediately regretting her choice of words. Chris laughed. "You really commit to that not from around here vibe, don't you? Come on, let's start with the tunnel of trust." As they weaved through the crowd, Zara's hidden sensors worked overtime, collecting data on pheromone levels, heart rates, and neural activity of the humans around her. But for once, the scientist in her took a backseat to simple curiosity. The tunnel of trust loomed before them, a dark, winding pathway lined with twinkling lights. Couples entered hand in hand, emerging either laughing or looking distinctly uncomfortable. "What's the purpose of this tunnel?" Zara asked. Chris's eyes twinkled mischievously. "It's all about building intimacy. You go in with a partner, and along the way, you have to answer personal questions about each other. Some people say it's where they really fell for their significant other." Zara felt a sudden urge to experience it herself. "Shall we try it? For research purposes, of course." Chris raised an eyebrow. "Sure, for research. Let's do it." As they entered the tunnel, Zara felt Chris's hand brush against hers. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through her body, making her artificial skin tingle. "First question," Chris read from a glowing panel. "What's your biggest fear?" Zara hesitated. Her biggest fear was being discovered as an alien, but she couldn't say that. "I fear not understanding," she said finally, "not connecting." Chris nodded thoughtfully. "That's deep, Zara. For me, it's probably letting people down, especially those I care about." As they progressed through the tunnel, the questions became more personal. Zara found herself opening up in ways she never had before, sharing thoughts and feelings she didn't even know she possessed. Emerging from the tunnel, Zara felt changed somehow. She looked at Chris, seeing him in a new light. "That was enlightening," she murmured. Chris smiled softly. "Yeah, it really was." Their next stop was the compatibility carousel, a dizzying ride that spun faster the more questions couples got right about each other. To Zara's surprise, she and Chris answered nearly every question correctly, sending them spinning at breakneck speed as they laughed uncontrollably. As the day wore on, Zara found herself fully immersed in the festival's activities. She arm-wrestled at the Strength of Love booth, tried her hand at the Cupid's archery game, and even participated in a trust fall exercise with Chris. But it was the stargazer's soulmate search that truly caught her attention. Couples lay on blankets, gazing up at the holographic night sky, trying to find constellations that matched their personality traits. As Zara lay beside Chris, pointing out unfamiliar star patterns, she felt a profound sense of connection, not just to him, but to the entire human experience. Here, under the artificial stars, she began to understand the true complexity of human relationships. Zara's iridescent skin shimmered with emotion. My mission was to study human reproduction, but I've discovered something far more valuable, the capacity for love that transcends species. I'm not going anywhere, Chris. Their tender moment was interrupted by a commotion outside. They rushed to the window to see a crowd gathering in the town square, all eyes fixed on the sky. A massive, shimmering portal had opened above Millbrook, and through it emerged a fleet of sleek, otherworldly vessels. "Oh no," Zara gasped, her alien features contorting with worry. "It's the Galactic Council. They must have detected my unauthorized interactions with humans." As the ships descended, landing in the open fields surrounding the town, Zara and Chris raced to meet them. The townsfolk watched in awe as elegant, ethereal beings emerged from the vessels, their forms shifting and shimmering like living starlight. The leader of the delegation, a tall, imposing figure with eyes that seemed to contain entire galaxies, stepped forward. "Dr. Zarek Salor," its voice resonated telepathically. "You have violated our most sacred laws of non-interference. Explain yourself." Zara stood tall, her hand firmly grasping Chris's. "Honored Council, I came to study human reproduction, but I've made a groundbreaking discovery. Humans possess a capacity for love and connection that defies our understanding of the universe. It's not just about biology, it's about the heart, the soul." The council leader's eyes narrowed. "Preposterous. Love is a primitive concept, a chemical reaction designed to ensure genetic diversity, nothing more." Chris stepped forward, his voice steady despite the otherworldly audience. "With all due respect, you're wrong. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. It bridges gaps, breaks down barriers, and yes, it can even cross the stars." A murmur rippled through the gathered aliens and humans alike. The council leader seemed taken aback by Chris's boldness. Seizing the moment, Zara addressed the crowd. "Humans of Earth, beings of the Galactic Council, we stand at a crossroads. We have the opportunity to bridge the gap between our species, to learn from each other, to love each other. Are we brave enough to take that leap?" Her words hung in the air, charged with possibility. Then, slowly, a cheer began to build. Humans and aliens alike raised their voices in support, the sound swelling until it seemed to shake the very fabric of reality. The council leader raised a hand, silencing the crowd. Its eyes, filled with swerving nebulae, fixed on Zara and Chris's joined hands. "Perhaps," it said slowly, "we have been hasty in our judgment. This connection between species warrants further study." A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. Zara's eyes widened with hope. "Does this mean?" The council leader nodded. "We will establish an official cultural exchange program. Volunteers from both our worlds will be allowed to interact, to learn from each other, and yes, to explore the possibility of interspecies relationships." The announcement was met with thunderous applause. As cameras flashed and reporters clamored for statements, Zara turned to Chris, her alien features glowing with joy. "We did it," she whispered. "We've opened the door to a whole new universe of possibilities." Chris grinned, pulling her close. "I told you love was the most powerful force in the universe. Now, how about we give these folks a real show?" Before Zara could respond, Chris dipped her low and kissed her passionately. The crowd went wild, cameras capturing the moment that would soon become the most shared image in human history. the first public human-alien kiss. As they broke apart, breathless and laughing, Zara realized that her mission had evolved into something far greater than she could have ever imagined. She had come to study human reproduction, but in the process, she had sparked a galactic revolution of love. The stars themselves seemed to twinkle with new possibilities as humanity took its first steps into a larger, more loving universe. And at the center of it all stood Zara and Chris, their improbable love story a beacon of hope for billions across the cosmos. As night fell on Millbrook, now forever changed, Zara looked up at the star-filled sky, her hand intertwined with Chris. "So," she said with a smile, "ready for our next adventure?" Chris squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "With you, always." And as they stood there, silhouetted against the cosmic backdrop, both knew that this was just the beginning of a love story that would span galaxies and redefine the very nature of connection in the universe. Cosmic Conception, the galactic cultural exchange program, dubbed Operation Stardust, had been underway for 6 months, transforming Earth into a melting pot of interstellar diversity. Millbrook, once a sleepy town, now bustled with alien tourists and human xenophiles, all eager to experience the phenomenon that had captured the universe's imagination. Zara and Chris, the poster couple for human-alien relations, found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of scientific inquiry and media frenzy. Their love story had inspired millions, but now they faced their greatest challenge yet, the possibility of starting a family. Interspecies pregnancy, the final frontier, blared headlines across the globe and beyond. The couple's decision to try for a baby had sparked a firestorm of debate, with supporters hailing it as the next step in cosmic unity, while critics warned of unforeseen consequences. On a crisp autumn morning, Zara and Chris sat in the waiting room of the newly established Xenobiology Fertility Clinic, a state-of-the-art facility that had sprung up in Millbrook almost overnight. The walls were adorned with holographic displays showing the reproductive systems of various alien species, while the air hummed with the soft peeps and whirs of advanced medical equipment. Chris squeezed Zara's hand, his eyes filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "You ready for this, Starshine?" Zara's iridescent skin rippled with emotion. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm nervous. What if our genetic structures are too different? What if?" Her words were cut off as Dr. Elara Vox, a renowned xenobiologist with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like the surface of a soap bubble, entered the room. "Ah, our celebrity couple. Are we ready to make history?" The next few hours were a blur of tests, scans, and mind-bending explanations of quantum genetics and interdimensional fertility treatments. As Dr. Vox rattled off terms like chronosynchronized gametes and psionic embryo implantation, Chris's head spun. In layman's terms, Dr. Vox concluded, her multiple eyes twinkling, "We believe we can create a viable hybrid embryo by merging your genetic material in a subspace incubator. It's never been done before, but the potential is astronomical." Zara and Chris exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, Chris spoke. "We're in. Let's make a star baby." The procedure itself was like something out of a sci-fi fever dream. Zara and Chris found themselves floating in a zero-gravity chamber, surrounded by pulsating energy fields as Dr. Vox and her team worked their genetic magic. As the final sequence initiated, a blinding flash of light filled the room. When it faded, a small glowing orb hovered between Zara and Chris. "Congratulations," Dr. Vox whispered, her voice filled with awe. "You've just conceived the universe's first human-alien child." The news spread faster than light speed. Cosmic Conception, a new dawn for the galaxy. The announcement of Zara's pregnancy set off a wave of celebration that rippled across the stars. But not everyone was thrilled. As Zara's pregnancy progressed, monitored by a team of the galaxy's top scientists, concerns began to surface. What would this child be capable of? Could it pose a threat to either species? Protests erupted outside the Millbrook Xenobiology Center, with signs reading "Keep Earth Pure" and "No Alien Hybrids," clashing with counter-protesters holding "Love Knows No Species" banners. Despite the controversy, Zara and Chris remained focused on their miraculous journey. Each ultrasound revealed new wonders, a developing child that seemed to flicker between human and alien forms, its very existence defying the laws of biology. As Zara entered her final trimester, which, due to the unique nature of the pregnancy, lasted only 3 Earth months, the entire galaxy held its breath. Betting pools sprung up across multiple star systems, wagering on everything from the child's appearance to its potential superpowers. Finally, on a night when the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before, Zara went into labor. The delivery was broadcast live across thousands of worlds, with billions tuning in to witness the birth that would change everything. After hours of suspense, a cry rang out, a sound that somehow combined a human baby's wail with the harmonic resonance of a distant quasar. Dr. Vox emerged from the delivery room, her multiple eyes wide with wonder. They're here," she announced, her voice trembling. Twins, a perfect blend of both species. The camera panned to reveal Zara and Chris, exhausted but radiant, cradling 2 small bundles. The infants were a marvel. Their skin shimmered with a soft, otherworldly glow. Their eyes held the depth of the cosmos, and delicate, translucent wings fluttered on their backs. As the new parents gazed at their children, a hush fell over the watching universe. In that moment, the boundaries between species, between worlds, seemed to dissolve. "What will you name them?" Dr. Vox asked softly. Zara and Chris exchanged a look of pure love. "Nova," Zara said, nodding to the girl. "And Orion," Chris added, smiling at the boy. As news of the successful birth spread, celebrations erupted across Earth and beyond. The birth of Nova and Orion wasn't just a scientific miracle, it was a symbol of hope, a living proof that love truly could conquer the vastness of space and the differences between species. In the years that followed, Nova and Orion would grow to become bridges between worlds, their very existence challenging old prejudices and inspiring new forms of understanding. They would face challenges, of course. Growing up as the galaxy's first hybrid children wouldn't be easy. But with the love of their parents and the support of 2 entire species behind them, their future shone brighter than the brightest star. As Zara and Chris stood by the window of their hospital room, their newborns cradled in their arms, they gazed up at the star-filled sky. "You know," Chris said softly, "when you first came to Earth to study human reproduction, I bet you never imagined it would lead to this." Zara laughed, her alien features glowing with joy. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries are the ones we never set out to make." As if in agreement, Nova and Orion cooed softly, their tiny hands reaching for the stars that were their birthright. And in that moment, as human and alien stood united in love and wonder, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, aware that a new chapter in cosmic history had just begun. The story of Zara, Chris, and their extraordinary children would be told for generations to come, a testament to the power of love to bridge the gaps between worlds and create something truly magical. In nurseries across the galaxy, young ones of all species would drift off to sleep, dreaming of the day when they too might reach across the stars and find a connection as powerful and transformative as the one that had brought Nova and Orion into the universe.